Is being smart all that it's cracked up to be? Is it worth the sadness, the darkness of your intelligence? Because smart people get depressed more. That part's true. The pattern recognition, the overthinking, the inability to enjoy a party without hyper analyzing everyone's insecurities in real time, all of that is real, and it does make life harder in very real ways. But what's actually dangerous is that we've started romanticizing it. Like depression is just this inevitable tax that we have on being intelligent, and there's nothing to do but sit within and feel poetic about how much you see everything that others don't see. And I'm here to tell you that, bro, that shit's cope. Sophisticated cope. And I want to tell you about one of the worst things I've ever done, because I think it's the most honest example about how unmanaged, intelligent, anxious minds can truly be destructive. I tried to sleep with my best friend's girlfriend, and I want to explain why. Not to justify it, because there's no justification, but because the reason is important. I was anxious. I was overthinking. I'd been pattern recognizing my friend's behavior for months and cataloging all the ways that he wronged me and his emotional problems, and building this like elaborate case in my head for why I was justified at being angry with him. And my mind took all of that anxiety and resentment and turned it into the worst possible decision ever. And yeah, his girl had a crush on me, but my brain found its exit as like this elaborate plan for revenge. A friendship of over 5 years, and it was destroyed. And it destroyed something in me too, because I had to sit there with this fact in my mind, and the same mind that I had been proud of for so long. The same mind that could see patterns and connections and all this depth that people often miss, had used all that intelligence to rationalize something genuinely awful and hurtful to the person that I loved most. And that was the moment that I understood that uncontrolled overthinking is truly destructive. It's not depression as like a philosophical condition. It's actual destruction of real things that you care about. So as a result, I chose to baptize myself. So I walked to a river, and I know how that sounds, but I needed a reset that felt physical and real and irreversible. So I needed to mark a moment in my life where I decided to stop letting my mind run me and start running my mind. And a lot of people miss this, especially people who are really good at thinking. They treat the mind as either a spiritual problem or a medical problem, but it's never both. And that baptism for me was using my mind to diagnose itself. You know, things like reading Atomic Habits, rebuilding my healthy self-care routines, and just building a more natural identity from the ground up. That was that intellectual, spiritual reset, and it was necessary and extremely real. But I also took a practical side, and I went to therapy, and eventually I got medicated for anxiety. And those two things, that intellectual reset and that medical intervention, they work together in a way that neither one of them could have done by themselves. But most intelligent people resist one side or the other. Either they intellectualize everything, and they never actually want to get help, and they read philosophy and feel the depth of their suffering, and they call that growth. And I'm not denying that reading and learning philosophically isn't growing. It's just like that is only one step of the equation. And if you expect all that to solve your mental problems from your anxious and very intelligent mind, you're lying to yourself, because that internal work is what actually changes how you think. So you need both, the baptism and sometimes a little bit of help from a therapist, the books, the insight, the interventions. And the intervention, ironically for me, was speaking with my best friend and him saying, like, what you did was fucked up and we're not friends anymore. And I'm devastated by it. But what it made me realize is that I couldn't let my mind control my life. And the fact that we treat those two things as ideologically incompatible is probably one of the most single self-destructive behaviors that intelligent people do to themselves. Does that mean I'm calling myself intelligent? Yes, I am. Camus actually talks about this. So what he discussed is that there's an inherent sadness to consciousness. So we're smart enough to know things like we're going to die. We're smart enough to see the absurdity that life is strange, but regardless, we just keep living. We're smart enough to recognize systems and patterns and the hypocrisy and emptiness that lies underneath a lot of what most people call meaning. And that's real. The floor for intelligent people is genuinely like way lower than the floor of people who are less intelligent, or a mind that doesn't examine life to the same degree. And for that reason, I agree that ignorance is bliss in certain specific ways, and pretending otherwise is just denial. But Camus said that the absurdity doesn't have to produce despair, and I agree with this because it can produce freedom. The lens through which we see darkness allows us to make choices for light. And that's the part that people skip over when they romanticize intelligent depression. They see sadness as this destination. And I'll admit, people who overthink, people with ADHD, who have very creative, anxious minds, we're more prone to depression. But it doesn't have to be that way. That doesn't make you cool. And Nietzsche, in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which is an excellent book, he talked about the Übermensch, of self-overcoming. This idea that the point isn't to escape your nature, but to master it, and to take things that can destroy you as a means of empowerment. And an intelligent mind is very similar to this. And I like to say it's like a rocket ship. It can blow up on a launch pad, or it can go to space, and it's more dangerous than a car. And it requires maintenance and skill and more honesty about when something is malfunctioning, but it can do things that a car can never do, like fly. And the people that I know who have genuinely good lives and genuinely intelligent minds, they're not people who sit in their room all day and pretend like what they're going through is depth, or they're just not okay with that being their version of depth. They're people who develop discipline to direct their mind rather than be directed by it. That's the distinction. Therapy, reading, self-care, self-awareness about that pattern recognition and how it's serving you. And when it's just anxiety destroying your fucking brain, dude, it sucks. And yeah, bro, I'll be honest. There are NPCs in life. Most people aren't thinking deeply about their lives. So yeah, conversation with them when you are a above average intelligent person can feel very difficult, and politics often feel corrupt, and culture can feel hollow when you're paying attention to it. But I think that there's something wrong about spending so much time cataloging everyone's lack of consciousness. I mean, I did that. I would sit at parties and just think to myself, man, are these people even thinking about existence and the economic, political state of the world? Bro, shut the fuck up. That's what led me to the river. Because that elaborate mental case I built about my friend's behavior, all that pattern recognition that pointed outwards, it was just my anxiety looking for somewhere to land and someone to destroy. That wasn't me. So the smartest thing intelligence can do is turn inward, and oftentimes you have to examine. You must catch yourself before the rocket ship points at something it shouldn't. And stupid people get destroyed by the world every day. So I'm not here to say that being stupid is better, right? But the thing is, with smart people who don't manage to control their minds also destroy themselves in the same way. And from where I'm standing, I think that's worse because you actually have the tools to do something different. So I say, is being smart worth the depression? I say, yeah. It definitely is worth the depression because you often, when you're a smart person, will start in a much darker place, a much lower place in life, but you have the capacity to actually self-actualize. And that's a big thing people go their whole lives without actually being able to do, is they don't understand the tools, the strategy, the steps, and the luck and the skill that is required for them to get from point A to B to C. So you should be happy for your gifts. You don't need to be so burdened by them, but you also don't need to cut yourself off from getting real help. And so I would say, yeah, being smart is worth the depression, but not for the reasons that people think. It's not because suffering produces depth or darkness or art or this romanticized nonsense that makes you feel horribly anxious. It's worth it because an intelligent mind has been through the darkness and can come back from it. It's a mind that's been to the river and decided to change, that has a ceiling that most people will never reach. And yeah, the floor is lower, but you have more control over the directions that you go in, and nobody can take that away from you. So go to therapy, read a book, get medicated if you have to, but stop glorifying the spiral. The mind is the most powerful thing that you have. So learn to fly that rocket ship and don't let it blow up your life. For real, man. Especially not your friendships with your best friend. That sucked. Let me know what you think. Do you struggle with intelligence? Do you struggle with anxiety? Do you struggle with overthinking? Leave a comment. What has helped you? Please let me know.